All right, everybody, thanks for joining. And I always like to start off with this first slide here. One of these isn't like the other, and we always like to talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, by and large, in the past has been, how do I offer these weekly webinars essentially for free? And the way I work it is I have been working with educators here in the FRS system going on 3 decades. So I've got quite a bit of extensive background. And I offer these in hopes that you or whoever I talk to become clients. So I do have a method to my madness. All of these workshops are free, whether it's the Social Security, whether or not it's retire early, all of them are absolutely free. And you get to ask me any questions you want, absolutely free. But I do that in hopes that I give you enough value to at least give me a shot when you go to retire, whether that's manage your drop money, your 401k, IRAs, things like that. So I am a fully licensed fiduciary. I have been fiduciary now, again, quite a while. So what that means is that I have to look out for your interests first. So that's primarily why I put the elephant up here on the screen. The elephant on the screen today, though, is that the stock market has been going absolutely bonkers. So for those of you who are coming down the pike here, and I'd say anybody within 5 years of retiring, what can you do to make sure you're getting the most out of your, retirement money? And we'll talk a little bit about this because if you've been talking to somebody, financial advisor, and they say, hey, your income plan looks good the way it is, you don't need to take much risk, or you have more than what you're going to need in retirement, you can take some of the chips off the table. In other words, you could take some of your retirement funds and insulate them from the markets up and down, or the market, the volatility in the market, basically. So we'll talk a little bit about how and why we do that. But this is somebody I just met maybe a month ago. I said, all right, look, your budget's fairly tight, but you can retire next year and you have enough money to live on for the rest of your life. I said, however, because your budget is a little bit tight, for every 10% the market goes down, you're going to have to work another year. I mean, if you're okay with working another year, 2 years, 3 years, that's perfectly fine. But for every 10% the market went down or her portfolio went down, she had to work another year. Suffice it to say, you fast forward to today, and her portfolio is down, close to 20%. And I said to her, I said, well, now you're going to have to work an additional 2 years. I said, we could still recoup some of that, but at this point, you better hope that the market comes back up by the end of next year, or else you're just going to have to work more. So if you've won the race, in other words, if you talk to an advisor, financial advisor, and they say, look, you have enough money and you do not need to go over a certain amount, whatever that amount is, you get your Social Security, you might be getting pension, whatever the case is. But if you have over that amount, you really need to secure that and make sure it's not at risk of losing a lot in the market. All right. And I hate to see that. I have a handful of people that I've talked to, and everybody gets a little bit complacent because the market has been going up so much for the last couple of years, 10 plus years. It's hard to think that the market actually goes down. And so every once in a while, we get a nasty little reminder that the market can and does go down on occasion. Unfortunately, if you're within a month or two or year or two of retiring, it can affect the time that you can go and retire. So if you're okay with working extra time, please, just keep chugging along. But if you were to a point where, if you have $500,000, let's say, and you lose $50,000, $100,000, you may have to work an extra year or two to get that money back. Anyhow, just something that commonly, comes up, and I hate to see it come up, but on occasion it does. All right, so tonight there's about 45% of the folks that have signed up for this workshop on the pension plan, and 55% have signed up for the investment plan. And I like to sort of break this out because if you're on the investment plan, you have essentially taken on all the risk of your retirement. All right. That means you are not going to be getting a pension, which if you're getting a pension, the only time you would not get your pension is if the state of Florida went bankrupt, which chances are pretty small. However, you're going to be getting paid every month for the rest of your life, right? Some of you are going to get paid for you and your spouse. We'll get into that in a second. But for those of you who have gone on the investment plan and you've been somewhat aggressive or moderately aggressive, you know that over the last month or so, it has not felt good because although you are getting two things, I'll show you here one the other slides, but you are getting actually less money than the folks in the pension plan put into your retirement. But in addition to that, when the market goes down 20%, if you're fully invested in stocks, now you've got a huge loss. So you are taking on all the risk in theory, right? We always love to talk theory and practicality here. In theory, you do better off if you're on the investment plan, assuming there are no down years. Are there down years? Yes. Was 2008 and 9 a down year? Yes. Did a lot of people get hurt? Yes. So we don't know where tomorrow is going to bring us, but um, we do know that you are taking a lot more risk. All right. So a couple of things. Again, I mentioned that I am an advisor. I am not a member of FRS. I don't work for FRS. So for those of you who thought that I was a member of FRS, I am not. I'm independent. I work with members of FRS, educators, firefighters, police officers in the state of Florida as a financial advisor. I'm based here in West Palm Beach. And we will talk a little bit about estate planning, but I am not an estate planning attorney. If you saw the email today, there was a little workshop that I had done with an estate planning attorney. I get a lot of questions as to what you need in the state of Florida. He did a great job of explaining what you need here in the state. And also, I am not a member of the Social Security Administration. We do touch on that briefly. I do have a lot of years working with people to try to maximize their Social Security. So I do know the ins and outs of that. But again, we will cover that here in a minute. So there are two free resources that we offer everybody that is watching this workshop. The first is an income plan. So whenever you look at retirement, you say, okay, I kind of know what my bills are, but I don't know how much income can I get. You know, if I maximize my Social Security, if I delay my Social Security, if I delay my Social Security and have my spouse start theirs. So it gets kind of complicated in the fact that you have to look at a lot of different variables. So this again is where if you have a financial advisor or you want to come see us, we're going to try to put all these pieces together and figure out what works best for you. All right. So we do the Social Security and we do the income plan. We also work with Medicare. So we kind of weave all of this stuff together. You know, can you retire a year early? Do you want to wait and retire a year later? All these things we can do for you, and that is a free resource that we offer everybody that is in FRS. All right. And this is kind of a worksheet on the Social Security. We will give you this as well. You know, the main thing that people ask us when they're talking about Social Security is what is the break even? You know, if you started at 62 or you waited to age 70, what is the break even? And really, it is the year or the amounts and the time and everything else. So it's not as simple as saying, okay, at 82 years old, you're going to make more if you had waited to age 70 and you'll make less if you took it at 62. So we give that to everybody as well, just kind of as a caveat to show you that if you start early, it is not beneficial for you to start early. It is beneficial for you to start at age 70. That's in theory. The practicality of it is not everybody can afford to live off their retirement earnings or their savings until age 70. So there is kind of a magic number. Also, you want to coordinate benefits, whether you've got a spouse, whether they should start first and you should wait, whether you should start first, they should wait. Again, we'll put all that together. And also, if you're a widow or widower, there are special carve outs for you that you are allowed to do that nobody else is allowed. So, again, if you have questions on that, feel free to set up a time. towards the end of this workshop, you will have the ability to sign up for a free 45-minute Zoom call with me or one of my staff, and we'll be more than happy to walk through that with you. All right. So, five of the top retirement issues we're going to talk about today. First are the pension benefits. The second is health insurance. The third is we will talk about Social Security and how to maximize it. Fourth, we'll talk about retirement savings and what investments are, the best for retirement savings. Remember, if you have retirement savings, it's not the amount of the retirement savings that you really have, but it's how do you take your retirement savings and how do you turn that into a paycheck for you that will last a lifetime, right? And we'll talk about some of the different investments that we use there. And tax reduction. So a big part I think that gets missed by most advisors by the way, I've done tax prepare. I was a tax preparer. So I have some background into some of the issues that you run into here. But by and large, most financial advisors, they could care less by a lot of this stuff. Most financial advisors want to know one thing. If you're going to retire, how much money you got because they want to manage it for you. Now, don't get me wrong, we manage money, but if your advisor isn't helping you figure out what is the best for your pension benefits, which health insurance you should be getting, how to coordinate that, how to maximize your Social Security, and also how to save taxes on your investments, you're probably at the wrong spot, right? Because these all put together are your retirement plan. And the one thing here that is consistent with all of this, most of it anyhow, is that once you make a decision, you can't go back. There are no do-overs. For instance, if you choose option one on your pension benefits and you meant to cover your spouse, you can't go back and redo that. You can't go back 2 years from now and say, oh, I'm sick. Maybe I should cover my spouse so that my spouse gets the benefit as well. So a lot of these are one time and done. That's why I also give everybody all of these workshops so you can go back and watch them. Because if there is something in here, you may not think of health insurance right now. You may be 62 years old, you're going to retire early, and you may say, well, health insurance, I'm just going to get the health insurance through the school district or school board. I'm going to wait. But then 2 years from now, you say, oh, geez, I need to sign up for Medicare. Where do I go to get that information? So I make all these workshops available to you on our YouTube page, and I take them down after a year old. And the reason why I do that is because all of these things change, seems like every year. Sometimes it seems like every month. But I want to make sure everything is current, and I would hate for you to go back into one of our workshops that we held 3 years ago and for it not to be accurate. All right. So again, we put that out there. And the number one fear for everybody, unless you married somebody with a lot of money, is running out of money. Because this is the number one worry, not only if you're an educator, not only if you're a police officer or firefighter, but it's the number one concern of people who are going to retire. Before, back when the average age or longevity was 70 years old, you got Social Security at 65, and you simply didn't last much longer past that. But today, you can reasonably expect to live into your 80s. Some of you are going to live into your 90s. So if you're retiring at 60, you've got 30, sometimes 30 plus years that you have to make sure you are getting income for the rest of your life. And it's scary because you just don't know what can happen tomorrow. And what's happening right now at the stock market is a good example of that. Um, you may have heard that tariffs are bad. You may have heard tariffs are good. But at the end of the day, if you're retiring in June or here at the end of May, you didn't want to hear anything about tariffs. You certainly did not want to lose 15% of your portfolio to the stock market just to be thinking, geez, now I'm really concerned. Now I've got 15% less than what I had. And again, unless you're going to work another year, you got to figure out what you're going to do with that. So running out of money, number one concern of Americans in general, right? So let's talk a little bit about pension benefits. I love showing the slide. If you have seen any of my other workshops, you know that I always show the slide. It just kind of gives you a quick snapshot. But everybody in FRS, no matter, you can be the governor or you can be the janitor at one of the schools. Doesn't matter. You are paying in 3% of your base salary into FRS, right? So 3% of your base salary. So here's what's interesting is if you are on the investment plan, they are matching 8.3% of your salary, and they're putting it in your investment plan for you. Now, if you are on the pension plan, they are putting 13 and a half. So if you're on the pension plan, you're getting 16 and a half roughly put into your FRS plan. Again, pension plan means that you're taking a lot less risk. All right. If you're on the investment plan, you are getting roughly 11.3%, roughly 5% less, and you've decided to take on all the risk. So this is where I say it's a little bit, and here, I can tell you a lot of stories, but the net of this is that they really should have kind of explained this to you 30 years ago when you started working for the districts. All right. They don't do a very good job. And if they do a good job, you don't really know. Most people that I work with that are retiring from the school districts, they started, they never in their wildest dream thought that they would be there 30 years and collect a pension. I'd say 9 out of 10 people started there. They wanted to help kids. They wanted to do this. They did very honorable professions, but they just didn't think they would continue to be there for such a long time. So it's you can't go back in time to look at this and say, geez, I probably should have done this or done that. But this, suffice it to say, is where you get paid a little bit less. And I also love the fact that if you were one of the legislators for the state, lieutenant governors, any, state attorney, you're getting 62% plus the 3% put into your pension plan. This is a pretty nice payday if you're working for the state and you're a public defender. So anyway, just I don't want to get stuck too much on that, but they get paid well behind the scenes. Their salary may not be much, but they get paid quite a bit behind the scenes, right? So again, if you're on the investment plan, this is from my FRS. You can go to their website. You'll probably have seen this a million times, but you pick one of these retirement funds. 9 out of 10 people have picked one of these retirement funds. And if you're retiring here in the next couple of years, you have probably picked this 2025 fund. And what it does is as you go out, it gets riskier. So if you pick the 2020 fund, it is less risky than the 2025, which is less risky than the 2030 and so on. But here's the thing with all of these, it does contain some element of stocks. So even if you pick this FRS retirement fund, which is retired, if you retired in 2000, it is mostly fixed income, but there still is a component of stocks to it. All right. So this is what I mean by you're taking a lot of the risk. And certainly if you're retiring soon, and I've seen it, you're picking the most risky, you go here to the US stocks, you're like, oh, let me pick what's got some of these high flyers in it. You have taken quite a hit. All right. So that's one thing that you want to look out for. So what are some of the sources of income for educators in retirement? You get your Social Security. Social Security is going to be roughly, 40 to 50%. I have 50 to 80%, but most of you are going to have money either in your drop account, not drop account, but in your pension account and drop potentially, or in your investment plan. So you're going to get roughly, 30 to 40% here in Social Security, 30 to 40% again in your pension, whether that's the pension plan or the investment plan. You're still going to be needing money to come out of there. And personal investments are similar to like your 403Bs. Maybe you got a second home, things like that, part-time work, rental income. You'll find a lot of people that retire and they retire relatively young. They get bored. So what's interesting about working with the school district is that even though you get summers off, you are used to a very strict schedule. All right. There's not a lot of jobs in the school districts that work mid shifts or late shifts and change schedules. If you started with a high school and you've been there for years, you have gotten up very early in the morning and you come home only to go to bed early to get up tomorrow very early. So if you are one of those types that are used to a routine, a lot of folks say, I just can't take it. I got to find something to do at my time. Then, a lot of folks go in, work part-time, things like that. So as far as investments go, there are three different buckets, and there's only three buckets that you can put investment income into. There's growth and liquid. Think of that as stocks. So that's the red bucket. It is completely liquid. You could sell a stock today and get the money out tomorrow. Um, there is protected and liquid. Think of CDs. Some folks don't think they can sell CDs, but you absolutely can. You can call the bank and say, "Hey, I've got this, $20,000 CD. I want to go ahead and get my money out." You can have the bank buy it from you. Some of the banks will give you the current interest up until the day you sell it. Some of them won't. Really depends on the bank. CDs again are going to get you, close to 3-4% today. They are fully protected, but you can't just have CDs. And even though the market just went down, if you just had CDs, you would eventually run out of money because if you're taking 4 or 5% and you're getting 3-4%, then you eventually use up your principal. So just using CDs is not advisable. And protected and growth, think of those as structured products. We have structured notes. I know that a lot of folks don't know about structured notes, but structured notes, think of them as kind of a bond. There's a couple of moving parts to them, but right now they're anywhere between 8 and 12% interest for 2, 3, 4 years. They have different maturity dates on them. Also, structured products, you can think of the annuities. So, most everybody here is familiar with tax sheltered annuities, which is your 403(b)s. Um, a lot of those, at least the better ones, will go up with the market, but it will lock in gains and you don't have losses. So that's another great thing to use in kind of this crazy market that we're in. But by and large, you need to use everything. You need some money liquid, you need some money that's protected, and you need some money that's going to grow, right? You can't just have all your eggs in one basket. That never works out. If you have all your money in stocks, it doesn't work out. If you have all your money in CDs, it doesn't work out. You've got to arrange everything. Um, I just talked to a lady today. She's got stocks or will have stocks when she retires. But she's like, well, now that I've got stocks, that's great, but I need to get 4 to 4.5% out every year to live on. How do you, unless you call your broker every month and say, hey, I need to sell 3 shares of IBM and send me a check. How do you convert that? This is why our firm specializes in how are we going to take the savings that you've accumulated over time, and then how do we turn that into a paycheck? And more importantly, not only turn it into a paycheck, but how do we make sure that we can grow it with inflation and keep it protected in the event of a market downturn? So that's really what we specialize in on the investment side. I like showing this only because it shows you the difference of what happens if you retire in a good market, which is on the left. It shows you what happens if you retire in a bad market, which is on the right. Both of these spreadsheets average 6% per year. You can see it all the way out to 39 years on the left, 39 years on the right. The only difference is they start off at the same amount of money you need. It starts off with inflation, 3% inflation. What does it show? Is in 23 years, if you retired in a bad market, which is that negative 15 there, in a bad market, you run out of money sooner than if it were a good market. And again, this is just to merely illustrate that you have to have some sort of diversification in your portfolio in order to mitigate this kind of thing where you run out of money. All right, one of the things you get from us is this kind of portfolio analysis, but more importantly, it just says, hey, if you got X number of dollars in bills, you're making Y. What is your chances of success? Meaning you don't run out of money while you're alive. And it's a great little, it takes a fairly sizable spreadsheet, condenses it down and says, hey, in this particular instance that we ran, again, this is an illustration, but I do pull it from current clients that we've run these for. So, um, no name on here, so don't worry if you are worried about somebody's name popping up. But it just says, okay, what does it look like if you needed X out of your retirement and you had Y? And in this case, it says, geez, you only have a 9% probability of succeeding where you don't run out of money in retirement. 9% is not good. We need you about 80% or better. And so what the software does, and again, if you haven't had this done for you, most financial advisors have this kind of software. It may be called different things, but you need to make sure you have them run this for you and try to do it sooner than later. For instance, if you're going to retire in a couple of years, have them do it over the summer. If they're not willing to do it for you, have us do it because this is the thing that says, hey, this is a snapshot. You may have 3 years. Let's see what adjustments we can make to get this number up. Okay. That's really what this does. It just gives you a quick little snapshot and says, hey, you're either on track or you're not. And then it says, hey, if you make these few little changes, you will be on track. And we want to know sooner than later. All right. So let's jump over to healthcare real quick. And we'll talk about Medicare supplement versus Medicare Advantage. Medicare supplement is traditional Medicare. If you were to retire this year, and you can file for the paperwork 3 months prior to your retiring, which is now, right? So for those of you that are going to retire this year, you can call us and let us know. We will help you through this. You just have to go to Medicare.gov and apply for your Medicare card. Excuse me. Now, I will say this. The federal government has cut back on Medicare staff that does this. All right. So if you are going to be retiring this summer, please call us now because we have seen where this has taken 2 to 3 months just to get your card, just to get processed. And it's not unheard of for them to lose it once or twice, which starts the process all over again. We have had people go 3 months without Medicare coverage because they submitted it right before they turn 65, and all of a sudden Medicare loses their paperwork, and then they got to go right back and file it all again. All right. You're allowed 3 months prior. Please take advantage of every day. Put that in your calendar because you don't want to go into retirement without having Medicare. All right. Healthcare coverage. So that's one. That's one of the things that people forget. Um, and then Medicare Advantage plans. So you say, geez, I've heard a lot about traditional Medicare, heard a lot about Medicare Advantage plans. I'm not going to get too far into it today because we have a specialized workshop that we do just on this. But this is what you need to know. If you do traditional Medicare or Medicare Advantage plans, Part B, as in boy, Part A is free. You're going to sign up for that on your 65th birthday or 3 months prior, and you're going to get Part A for free. So if you're working for the district while you turn 65, it's no big deal. You sign up, it's free. When you retire, you need to sign up for Part B, as in boy, 3 months prior to your retirement date. It will cost you this year $185 uh, per month, right? So that's not cheap. $185 per month for Part B. And now, what does Part B give you? It pays for roughly 80% of your medical bills if you were to go to the hospital and so forth. So if you trip and fall and you break a leg or whatever the case is, you got to go to the hospital, and it's $10,000. By and large, Medicare, that $185 that you pay for Medicare, will cover 80%. So they'll cover 80 or $8,000 of that $10,000 bill. You say, well, what covers the other 2,000? And it's going to be a Medicare supplement or the Medicare Advantage. The difference being is Medicare supplement is traditional Medicare. It is going to run you about $250 a month. So you're the 185 plus the 250. And there is a healthcare supplement that you get, but I'll talk about that here in a second. So it's going to run you about $400 a month in retirement for the rest of your life. Unless they change Medicare it is going to cost you roughly $400 a month. All right. The Medicare Advantage plans, think of that as like an HMO. By the way, the Medicare supplement, you can go to any doctor, any physician, any hospital to have any procedure done that is covered by Medicare. All right, that's covered by Medicare. Now, there's a few things that are not covered. If you go and get stem cell in your hip, like my uncle did, which cost him $7,500 in cash because his hip was hurting him and he didn't want to go and get a hip replacement. That shot alone, there might have been more than one, but that shot was not covered by Medicare. He had to pay $7,500 out of his own pocket to get that done. All right. So just because you got Medicare, don't think that everything is always covered. There are experimental treatments that are not covered. Right? If it weren't for my uncle trying this, I wouldn't even talk about it. I didn't talk about it prior to him telling me about it. But Medicare Advantage plans, you have to go in network. Now, you can go out of network, but it is very expensive. All right. Think of it as an HMO. HMOs, you got your primary care physician, and if you need to go see a specialist or anything like that, your primary care physician refers you out. So you can get an Advantage plan. What's the difference? Most Advantage plans do not have a monthly payment. Okay, so that's the important part. So you do not have to pay that 200 and some dollars a month to get coverage, but you have to go to the doctors that are in network. You can go out of network, but it is super expensive to do that. Now, a lot of times what happens is you start with a doctor that's a specialist. Let's say it's podiatrist or whatever you got. And then all of a sudden it's a newer doctor. They get paid less if they're doing Medicare Advantage plans, typically, right? This is kind of the behind the scenes, right? You pull back the curtain and you're looking back there in the Medicare Advantage world and you see behind the scenes, these are some of the things that happen. Um, as that doctor progresses and gets more time and more service and more clients under his belt, they typically, not always, but typically they'll say, you know what? I don't need this Advantage plan crap anymore. They're only paying me half as much as traditional Medicare. We're not going to see patients anymore. Now, that guy or girl, doctor that you have been seeing no longer is in network. If you want to continue seeing them, you can, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now you got to go find another doctor. So this is the caveats to getting the Advantage plan. If money is an issue when you retire and we do your budget and we see that you're at 8%, we may have to default to Medicare Advantage plans. But we typically don't want to do that. We want to start with a Medicare supplement. You want Plan G as in golf. That's kind of the Cadillac as of today. If you can't get Plan G, then we drop it down to Plan N, and I can show you the what goes on there. It's about 20% less. And if that doesn't fall within your budget, then we, by default, and not any fault of your own, your budget just doesn't support this extra $400 a month, then we can drop down to a Medicare Advantage plan. All right, so that's really all you need to know if you're retiring next year or this year or next year. It changes slightly throughout the years. It really hasn't changed much. And again, I have a whole nother workshop if you are looking at Medicare as to why we chose or choose certain ones. But as in a nutshell, that's really the reasons why we would do that, one over the other. All right. Now, you do get a health insurance subsidy. You have to be 62 years old to collect it. So, what's interesting is I had somebody retire at 59. They had worked 30 years for the district. By the way, you can retire at 39 and have worked 30 years for the district. You really just start at 29 years old and put in your 30, and you're 59 years old and you've got 30 years in the district. So you can, and I do see quite a few people that retire early. I don't suggest it, by the way. Monetarily, I don't suggest it. But by and large, you can. All right. And so what happens is that she did not receive her health insurance subsidy, and she forgot that you have to be 62 years old in order to collect. How much is it? It's $7.50 per year worked for FRS. It's my understanding last year they did raise it to 750. Prior to that was five. So if you have 30 years time and service with the district, you can get an offset of $225. So if it costs you 400 and you get 225 back, not too bad because now you're paying roughly $200 a month for the best insurance coverage you could possibly get in the United States. All right. Or if you retire early, you can keep your existing insurance, right? So at 65, you're going to get a Medicare regardless. They're going to kick you off of uh, the district's insurance anyhow. So again, here in Palm Beach County, it's United Healthcare. But the second you turn 65, they will boot you right out. They will not let you keep your insurance past 65 because they're paying for it. And so they want the government to pay for it. And anytime they can do that, they will pull the plug. All right. So anyway, you can keep your existing insurance. For instance, the lady that was 59 years old, she kept her existing insurance. She's still on United Healthcare, but you can keep it up until you reach age 65. Now, the cost of that is about $650 a month here in Palm Beach County. It varies on your county by county. So I know Northern State is a little bit less. Some of the HMOs are also a little bit less, but by and large, about $650 a month. And let's say that you are also covering your spouse. It will be roughly $1,300 a couple per month. That is just for your insurance, by the way. That doesn't include any copays. That doesn't include any out of expense or out of pocket expenses. That's just strictly for your insurance cost to say you have insurance. Now, um, I guess I'll go on a little bit of a tangent. So, a lot of times people say, "Oh, well, I'll get on Christian Healthcare Ministry." There's a couple of different. Um, um, it's kind of like insurance, but it's kind of a shared cost for health insurance. The district does not recognize this. FRS does not recognize those as credible insurance providers. They will not pay you that $225. All right, keep that in mind. So as you get ready to retire, you say, "Oh, well, I'll just join Christian Healthcare Ministries or one of these other sharing, um, medical cost sharing things." They will not give you your money. I don't know why. They just will not, they do not view it as credible insurance and they will deny you that money. All right. Anyhow, again, don't, I'm just giving you the information. I don't know why they should give you the money. You earned it, but nonetheless. And then again, when you turn 65, you got Medicare and Advantage plans. All right. So what do we look like in retirement savings? Retirement savings is any of the money that you have put aside in your tax sheltered annuities, IRAs. A lot of folks have 401k plans that they've put money in. For somebody that work for some of the cities and things, they're 457 plans, things like that. So it's any money that you have put aside that is coming out of your paycheck. Now, I will say that if you are on the investment plan, it also includes the money that you have through your investment plan. All right. So if you're on the investment plan, you've been invested, you've got, I'm just going to use an arbitrary number. So let's say you've got $250,000 there, and then you've got a tax sheltered annuity. Let's say you've got $100,000 that you've got in your tax sheltered annuity. These are the monies that you're going to need to live on in retirement. So you'll get your Social Security and you'll also get income from your investments. All right. Now, Social Security, the interesting thing about Social Security is every August, which they're going to come up here and give you the numbers for 2025, but they do an evaluation. They kind of do a snapshot. Now, with everything that happened in Social Security over the last year, I have no idea what the number is going to be look like come this August, right? I don't know. I have no idea. But I do know that last August, when they did the snapshot, there were 68 million people taking Social Security, and the average benefit amount was 1,783. Now, I do know that they allowed 3 million more people to start Social Security that worked for the government that was ineligible before Trump took office. Again, I'm not going to get into politics, but before Trump took office, there were 3 million people who were not eligible for their pensions or Social Security. They are now on the payroll. All right. So it is a net increase of at least 3 million people who work for the federal government. I have no idea any of these other numbers that you see from Doge and all this kind of stuff. I am so interested to see what this number looks like this August when they audit it. But here's the net of it. The net of it is this. First off, Social Security will officially be bankrupt 2035, just the way the numbers work out. It will no longer have the money in there to pay everybody's benefit. 2036, it will drop by 17%. Does that mean everybody should run out and get Social Security now? No. I hear this on occasion. Social Security is not insolvent. It was never solvent to begin with. All right. So it's one of these things that people put money in, it gets cycled, and it goes right out the back door. The money that you put into Social Security is not earmarked for you. It was never put in a trust fund for you. It was never set up correctly. And the correct way is to put money in an account, let it grow. And then when you turn Social Security age, the money is there for you to get out of your own fund, but it was never set up that way. So they're going to have some issues with Social Security, whether or not they reduce benefits for high income earners. I will say this, though, if Trump were able, and again, this isn't political, this is just telling you the way things are set up currently. So if Trump has its way and Social Security is not taxed, then it runs out of money just a little bit quicker. All right. The way it's set up now is means tested, meaning that if you earn over a certain amount, um, you have to pay part of that Social Security back. All right. If he does away with that, you no longer have to pay part of it back, and it's just a bigger shortfall. So again, I don't know how they're going to sort all this stuff out. There's a couple different ways. People in their 30s got to wait until 70 to start collecting. Instead of age 62 to begin early, maybe they may bump it to 65. There's all these different plans on the board to try to fix Social Security and make it more solvent. But as of now, they haven't fixed it. But please don't ever think that Social Security, they're going to do away with Social Security. They're stealing your Social Security. They're not doing any of that, right? They're not doing any of that. So I get people asking me that on a question a lot. We do a comprehensive Social Security analysis for you. And let me tell you why we do this. One is that we want to maximize your benefit, and you want to maximize your benefit. This is one of those you can't do over. Technically, you can, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops. You got to pay it back. You got to do it within 365 days. I've never seen anybody do it. I've had one client try to do it, and he couldn't get it all done in time. So, Social Security, once you elect Social Security, it is one and done. It's better for you to have somebody do an analysis for you. And again, all financial advisors have this kind of software. So you make sure you get this done for yourself. There's a couple things that you need to have done. This is one of them because what you want to do, especially if you're married, you want to coordinate the benefit. You want to make sure that your benefit and your spouse's benefit is the maximum. If this is one of those things you can't do over and you leave $100 a month on the table, doesn't sound like much money. But $100 a month times 30 years, it's quite a bit of money. All right. So make sure they coordinate your benefit, when to start your benefit. If you are divorced, maybe you get half of your spouse's benefit. Maybe if you are a widower, you want to get your widow benefits or widower benefits. You want to postpone getting your own benefits to age 70. Again, there is a way mathematically, right? So we can look at this. It doesn't always match up with what you're going to do, but wouldn't it be worth it to know, hey, you can get an extra $300 a month from Social Security if you just make this one little change? Most people would agree it's worth it. All right. So we have this chart here and it shows you, okay, if you start the benefit early or late, how much does it benefit you? And here, when you turn 79 and 10 months, it's actually a wash. And then if you go beyond that, it was better for you to wait. So again, we give you this information to use and to make good decisions. That's really what we're trying to do, is try to make good decisions here. And tax reduction. So some of the tax reduction strategies. I see my new slide here isn't working exactly the way it was supposed to be. Uh, Roth conversion. So these are some of the things that you can do. So let's say that you did a great job of saving. You put a lot of money in tax shelter annuities, or TSAs, 457s, things like that. You've got $250,000. Let's say also you're on the investment plan and you worked for 25, 30 years. You've got another $250,000 there. So now you've got about $500,000 that has not been taxed. So now you kind of have an issue because you've got this ball of money. You've got $500,000 that has not been taxed yet. And what happens is, as you get older, you have to start taking taxes out. So this is an illustration. Again, I use this on client that had roughly $250,000 in investable that hasn't been taxed yet. All right. And so we try to say, okay, why am I even talking about this? We're trying to say, if you took money out and you converted it, you took more money out at the beginning of your retirement versus waiting, does it make sense to do that by lowering your taxes later in life? That's really all we're trying to do. Say, does this strategy work for you if you took more money out up front? And if so, does it make sense? That's all we're trying to do. And by the way, it doesn't make sense for everybody. It makes sense for a lot of folks, especially if you're at that $250,000 or more. But if you have less than that, sometimes it doesn't. So again, this client had $250,000, and we say, well, I don't know. I got to do this spreadsheet basically for everybody that we talk to, and say, well, okay, we did all this, and what the software says is that if you took a little bit more out every year, instead of your income, or I'm sorry, this is taxes. So instead of your taxes being, $7,000, $8,000, if we raised your taxes to where you're paying $18,000 a year in the first couple of years that you're retired, it saves you all this money in green later on. Sometimes it doesn't work out this way. We say, okay, well, what is the end result? The end result is that the client would save roughly $70,000 in taxes. You say, well, is that something you want to do? Maybe you do. Maybe you think $70,000 isn't enough. Some people don't like the idea of taking more money out up front, and they'd rather postpone it. Again, this is how the strategy works. But for you, maybe $70,000 is worth it. All right. So again, this just shows you cash flow. We look at make sure that you have enough in retirement. And one other thing that I like to talk about, is what happens if you retire early. One of the folks, I get this question quite a bit, especially now. A lot of folks are like, geez, I've made it. They see the finish line. Uh, the normal finish line for you may be 2, 3 years down the road, but this year was particularly rough. And you say, geez, if I can retire this year, I'm out. So what does it look like? So what do you miss out if you retire 1 year early on the pension plan, and what happens on the investment plan? So if you're in the pension plan, for every year that you continue working and you're not in drop, all right? So this is important. If you're in drop, you already know your pension's frozen. But if you are not in drop, you get about $100 more a month in your pension. It's actually about 110 now, but about $100 more a month. So if you were getting $2,000 and you say, geez, I'm going to work one more year, how much more money will I get? It's about $100 a month, all right? If you're in the pension plan. So it's about $7,500 if you are on the investment plan. Because remember, you're getting paid 11.5% roughly put into your pension plan. So it's about $7,500 on average. It could be a little more, could be a little bit less. And again, if you're on drop, you're still getting your pension. So if you were in drop, your pension is being put into your drop account. If you are in drop and you get out of drop, your pension is getting put into your checking account. So it's either going into your drop account or it's going into your checking account. Either way, you are getting paid your pension, right? So you're not missing out on anything if you're in drop. However, you are missing out on 1 year's worth of salary, which could be 60, 70, $80,000, depending on where you are on the pay band. So that's what you're missing out on if you are in drop. And you could, if you're not 65, also be paying your medical. And as I've shown, it's about $650 a month that you're paying. But in addition to that, if you have a spouse, then you're paying $1,300. So again, what we try to do is we want to take a snapshot, and you should have, again, somebody do this for you, if not us, because this is really the key here. You really want to make good decisions as you get ready to approach. But more importantly, if you've got a couple years left, you want to have an analysis done, because if you can make a few little tweaks, if you say, geez, I've got an 80% retire if I work an additional year versus 60% if I retire now, or if I take part of my investment and I make sure I don't have losses in it, it increases my probability. If you can take and analyze all this and say, geez, if I just move a couple little levers and pull a little thing, I can increase my chances of retirement. This is the time to do it. Right? I know it's towards the end of the year. A lot of folks are busy, and you're going to get busier before you got end of year stuff you have to do. But you want to make sure that if you are going to retire, make sure you talk to us over the summer, or if you are getting ready to retire now, let's at least pull this stuff apart for you and make sure that you're on the right track. All right. Final thoughts here is I used to have a picture of people playing tennis. Obviously, no, well, not nobody, but a lot of people don't play tennis anymore. They're taking the tennis courts out. But if you want to go on cruises, the interesting thing is that when you retire, you kind of want to have your bucket list or put together some things that you want to do. I see kind of different happiness. Let's just say happiness when you retire. Some people are happy to get out of the district. Some people are happy they're going to have free up their time. Other people are kind of miserable because they need something to do. But make sure that you get yourself a little bucket list and go and plan some of the things that you're going to enjoy, whether it's travel or time with kids or move. Um, I do have a lot of folks asking me about living here in Florida. Again, we live here in South Florida, so a lot of my clients are here in South Florida. But some of the condos here, if you're in the ocean right now or by the ocean, and you live in a three-story or more, you are worried about these assessments, because these assessments are coming, whether or not you're paying for it out of pocket or whether or not you are going to be financing it. These assessments for these condos are coming, and the insurance is not going down. Insurance is never going down. Your taxes are never going down. So if your budget is tight and you're on the condo or you're on the coast, you really should be looking at trying to get out before the mass exodus. I talked to a lot of realtors. I myself have real estate. I've had real estate for a long time. But I would be very, very skeptical of buying anything near the water in all of Florida right now. Again, this sort of crash is just kind of starting. And I don't mean to scare anybody, but I am getting the calls. Geez, my HOA is tripled, my taxes have doubled. I live in a condo, it's 55 and up, which eliminates, a lot of people buying into the condo too. Um, you know, should I be getting out of here? And my answer is that the budget's tight, yes, without hesitation. I've seen a lot of people get caught up in this, and it's not worth it. It's not worth the stress. What is the number one cause of stress? It's the first slide. It's running out of money. If your budget's tight now, in 10 years, your budget is not going to look any better. Okay. So Please, again, I'm not the only financial advisor in the state, but if you're working with somebody, get them on the phone and get an appointment and get set up because you need all of this information. You need to know when you get Social Security, when you, which pension plan you should get, what you're going to do with your investments when you finally retire. That's going to protect them and keep income. These are the things you need. All right. So again, those are these are all the things that we offer for free that you can get. Um, and if you want to set up a time with us, there's an email that goes out right after this workshop is over. You can set up a time to sit down with us and review anything. Again, if you want our team to run it for you, we're more than happy to do that. If you want to compare it with your existing advisor and say, hey, what are we looking at? What you haven't heard from them in a while, get them on the phone. If they're ducking because the market's down and they've had you in high volatility stocks, Nvidia and stuff. Hey, it looked great while you're making money, but now you're coming down to home stretch. Maybe it doesn't look so good. So if you want, you can get your phone. You can just scan the QR code that's there. Couple of things while we wind up, and if anybody wants, they can throw some questions in the chat if you like. Couple of things though is the income guide, you'll want to know kind of where your income is coming from as you get ready to retire. And if you have a lot of expenses, you do not want to step foot in retirement without having paid off all of your debt. All right. So this includes credit cards. If in the event you have serious credit card debt, things like this, home equity lines, by and large, we always suggest that you wait until you have that paid off. Now, whether you can use some of your investment proceeds, your tax shelter annuities, things like that, you can do that. But keep in mind, anytime you take money out of IRAs, tax shelter annuities, 457s, all that kind of thing, when you take money out, you owe tax. If you haven't paid the tax, now all of a sudden you're coming up, you're going to retire in June, you've worked half a year, you're going to be paying a lot more in taxes than what you need to. All right. So sometimes people say, oh, I'm just going to pay off my house. It's $150,000. They're getting $200,000 from the investment plan. Yeah, I'm just going to smack down 150. That will not work. That 150 that you're planning on paying your house off with, you're going to owe 30% in taxes. So that 150 now becomes 200. You're going to write a check to the IRS for 50. You're going to pay off your house and you're going to have no extra money. I see people try to do this all the time. It's one thing if you want to pay the house off, that's great, but you don't do it as a lump sum. You make $10,000 payments extra to principal and get it paid off over time. There's some strategies here. So, anyway, I don't get too far afield. I do appreciate everybody being on the call. One final thing is that this call is recorded and it will go out to everybody. If there are certain sections that you want to watch again, feel free to do it. If you got a friend and they say, geez, I couldn't make it on the call, there's about 30 people or so that sign up for this workshop tonight that didn't show. Um, but if you have friends that you just want to say, hey, you know what? I've seen this. You might learn something from it. Feel free to send it to them. I do appreciate the folks that do that. Um, and I do appreciate everybody that sees me every week. There are a handful of people that join every week. It's great. I do appreciate it. And that's about it. So I don't see any more questions. Kind of answered most everything as we went. Again, if you want to, you'll get an email just as soon as we hang up to whatever email address that you registered for this. And you could set up a time to talk to us. That is advantage to you. The times are on there through my calendar. So again, thank you for everybody for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye now.